Hello, welcome to my session. Today we'll be discussing Harold Pinter's play The Birthday Party, but we'll particularly focus on Stanley's nervous breakdown that happens in Act 2. So our today's discussion will be focused on Act 2, particularly the nervous breakdown of Stanley Weber. As you can see, Act 2 begins with Petty reading a newspaper in the living room. Well, Act 2 shows how Act 2 shows how society works as a driving force in creating neurotic disorder in individuals. Act 2 shows how society works as a driving force in creating neurotic disorder in individuals. For example, Pinter's character, Stanley, in The Birthday Party exposes society's role in making people neurotics, which we can notice particularly in Act 2. Pinter exposes the miserable state of individuals in this universe. And Pinter's The Birthday Party is an example of showing the miserable state of human beings in this universe. And this miserable and neurotic state has been exemplified by Stanley's nervous breakdown in Act 2. Well, we can see that the birthday party can be termed as an allegorical tale of an individual who is an artist, a non-conformist, but is forced to be conformist through physical and mental torture. We see Goldberg and McCann, the two most influential characters in this play, to cause Stanley's physical and mental torture. To expose the role of society behind the mental disorders and abnormalities of the contemporary individuals, it is valuable to study Pinter as he writes not only to aestheticize, but also to stir the minds of his readers. In order to understand the psychology of characters, it is important for us to read a play by the mental vocal cords rather than by the eyes alone. So, reading plays through the eyes of your minds is important in order to understand the psychology of the characters in the plays. Stanley, the protagonist in The Birthday Party by Harold Pinter, can be taken as a true projection of such an individual whose personality has been crippled for his artistic vision by the cruel gods of the society. We see Stanley, whose only crime was to be indifferent towards society and to sustain his individuality, was not allowed by society to live by his own in his separate peace and by hiding himself from others. The fear of the world outside has made Stanley neurotic, so he can't live on his own in an isolated place. For example, the boarding house where he is living in isolation and out of public gathering as well. But this living is interrupted by two sinister visitors, like Goldberg and McCann, who then become a terror for Stanley. Painter himself admits that individuality and freedom of modern man is at stake at the hands of society and social institutions. Painter exposes society and authorities as the demolishing forces who act as a constant threat to the identity of the individuals, which we also can see in this play, that Stanley also faces the threat to his identity. Goldberg and McCann stand for the tyrannical authorities that are beyond one's control, specifically beyond the control of Stanley. Stanley's, as we can see, domination, Stanley's, as we can see, domination by the visitors symbolizes the way society interferes with the identity of an individual. Well, Painter's portrayal of Stanley is of a victim, and the victor in guise of Goldberg and McCann is no one else but society. Here we can particularly see that Goldberg and McCann stand for society. They symbolize society, and that also symbolizes a threat to existence of Stanley and a threat to Stanley's identity. Well, Stanley struggles hard to avoid his victimization, but unfortunately he is unable to bypass his destiny, because he is predestined to face or encounter what he is doing now. And his fate is written, in fact, his fate is written by the gods of society. So here, Goldberg and McCann also symbolize the gods of society who control, others' fates and destinations. Society wanted him to be a conformist, so it is shattered. So it shattered his identity as well as his individuality when he refuses to be so. Malkin quite appropriately identifies that the whole scenario is something like a funeral. He says, if a funeral, quote unquote, if a funeral awaits Stanley, surely it is the funeral of his individuality. Well, we will now, be viewing a scene from Act 2 and see how Stanley becomes a victim to neurotic disorder. We will see that Stanley's breakdown, neurotic, nervous breakdown is happening here in this scene when Goldberg and McCann are questioning him, without any cessation, are questioning him ceaselessly. So now let's view the scene from Act 2. Here in Act 2, in this particular scene, we see that Stanley is completely lost. He has a complete and sudden nervous breakdown. So, Stanley is, we see that here Stanley is, bombarded with ceaseless questions by Goldberg and McCann. He loses his sense and rational. He cannot move or act normally. Abnormalities are what engulf Stanley completely. So, this is how we see Harold Pinter has pictured the neurotic, nervous breakdown of Stanley, which is in fact caused by the two agents of society, namely Goldberg and McCann. And that's all about our today's class. Thank you.